Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Imaginate, and today we're going to take a look at all of the samples, presets, instruments, all the things inside of Air, Anthemic Drum and Bass, the sixth installment to the Elements series. Okay, so we've got the pack opened up here, and as you can see, it's a pretty big pack. I wanted to include a lot of content for you guys just because of all the love and support and just amazing things that everyone's had to say about the Element series. It's been an incredible project. So with that said, thanks so much for picking up your copies of the Element series. Thanks so much for all the support you guys have shown. I'm really glad that you guys are excited about this project as much as I am and are getting loads of production value out of it. Anyway, I wanted to deliver, again, a lot of stuff for you guys as much as I could. This is a pretty wide genre too, anthemic drum and bass, so it kind of lends itself to being able to get creative and explore sonic capabilities, sonic options, things like that. So let's take a look at what's inside Air Anthemic Drum and Bass. So of course we have our atmospheres. We have atmosphere one shots. This time I stuck mostly to harmonic sounding atmospheres, tonal atmospheres. I just felt like it fits the aesthetic of this collection more so than if I did anything atonal. So anyway, we have a pretty nice collection here of different tonal atmospheres. I'm gonna go ahead and play a couple. Cool, so as you can tell, a nice variety of different atmospheres in terms of intensity. We have some that are nice and big and grandiose, I guess might be the word. And then we have a couple that are a little bit more tucked away and intimate. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bass loops. Here's a few of those. Cool, so yeah, nice variety again of different levels of intensity. We have some Reeses, some heavy distorted basses, some rhythmic basses, bass pads, all kinds of different things, again, just for different levels of anthemic, liquid kinds of production. Check out the bass one shots here. So again, loads of variety in the bass one shots, things perfect for big production or smaller intimate productions, again, just whatever your taste is. And of course, like the other packs, I've included single C note versions of these basses. That way you can load in the samples themselves already set at C into a sampler, and you get all flexible with that and creative, whatever you want to do. So loads of flexibility, not just from a production sense, but also from a sound design sense as well. Again, just want to give you guys as much flexibility as absolutely possible. So before I go any further, I just want to elaborate a little bit on why there's so much variety in this pack. So of course, the variety from a sound design and production perspective, but also from an aesthetic perspective that fits the dynamic nature of Air. Of course, air, wind, breezes, a gust of wind, all those kinds of things are all words that I kept up in here while designing these sounds. So that's why there's so much variety. We have nice little breezy kind of sounds. We have strong gusts of wind, which could be the Reeses and neural kinds of sounds. We have some thicker, intimate sounds, which could be like a hazy kind of day, foggy kind of day, things like that. So just thinking about the different kinds of aesthetics around the word air and wind, and then just designing around that. We'll save the bonus folder here for the end of the video. Let's go ahead and take a look at the drum loops. So here in the drum loops, we have a bunch of different isolated loops. We have claps, course, we have full kit loops. And of course, a nice variety of different loops in there too. Here we have some nice crispy hat loops. And these are absolutely perfect for dropping in your track as is to fill out the high end and the rhythmic interest in the drums. Next, we have some nice punchy kicks. And again, great for dropping in your track as is to fill out your drums or as one of the main elements of your drums. We have some percussion loops. So a nice variety in here as well, some clicks, little woodblock kind of sounds, little tonal things, just great for adding to your drum loops and making them sound a little bit more dynamic and interesting. Next, we have our shaker loops. Many different sonic options here in terms of the sound, but then also to the rhythms. We have some that would be great as like little ghost notes between your snares, some that would be just huge for filling out your top end in the drums, and there's some that are going back and forth with a tremolo on top just to give a little bit more interest and movement in your drums too. Of course, we have some snare loops. And as well a nice variety of snare loops, unusual sounding snares, and some great layerables, lots of variety here. And finally we have the tops. So these are classified as cymbals, splashes, chinas, those kinds of things to fill out the high-end spectrum, of course, and add a little bit of intensity to your loops. And of course, what's cool about these loops is all of the elements of the full kit loops are isolated so you can mix and match snares, kicks, percussion, hats, all those kinds of things, just for maximal flexibility. Now let's check out some of the drum one-shots. We have some claps here. Cool variety as well. Check out some cymbals. We have some hats. We have some kicks. We have percussion. So cool variety of sounds in there, some organic, some synth, some little zips and zaps and things like that, just to fill out the groove in your drums as well. We have some shakers. And of course we have our snares. And a nice variety of different kinds of snares, some usual, some unusual, rim shots, traditional snare shots, good layers, things like that. Again, just for total production flexibility. And of course, like all of the Element series, we have the original Foley one-shots that all of the sounds, atmospheres, basses, synths, presets, all the stuff are based off of. So just like the other Elements packs, all different ways that air is produced, whether that's through a flute, a snort through the nose, some blowing, a fan, taking an egg whisk and swatting it past the mic and recording the air that is produced through that, which is kind of cool. It's kind of a howl noise sometimes, which is interesting. So yeah, just different kinds of ways that air is produced. And again, these are all the sounds that all of the other sounds in the pack were made from. Let's go back into Logic and take a look at these effects loops now. So just some zips and zaps, bleeps and bloops, glitches, all those kinds of things just in loop format. Great for throwing over your drums and adding a little bit more synthetic interest and groove interest as well. Now let's take a look at the effects one-shots. So we have our fallers. We have some risers. Now let's take a look at the short effects. So a nice variety of different kinds of sounds in the short effects. We have some transitions, some percussive effects, just again, different kinds of sounds for different moments in a song and different uses. Now let's take a look at the keys loops. Nice, organic, and dynamic sounds. I loved making the keys in particular. Just love the tonality of them. And of course, let's take a look at the keys one-shots. So again, nice and organic, dynamic sounds. And of course, a nice variety of different kinds of key one-shots. We have the single C one-shots here that you can load into a sampler and play whatever you want with. And of course we have major and minor key chord one-shots for just different kinds of writing. Now let's check out the synth loops. So we have leads, pads, plucks, and synths. Here's the leads. A nice dynamic amount of sounds here. Here's some pad loops. Again, a nice dynamic collection of sounds here, some that are great for higher energy productions as well as softer productions. There's a huge amount of synth pluck loops in this pack. So a nice variety of chord loops as well as some melodic loops in the synth plucks. Just again, lots of different kinds of variety for different kinds of production scenarios. And then lastly, we have some synth loops. And again, a huge assortment of sounds here of all different types. We have some bells, lead kind of sounds, some background, harmonic and melodic, bolstering kinds of sounds. Now let's take a look at the synth one-shots. Again, a huge variety of sounds here for all different kinds of production scenarios. And of course, I included single C note versions of all of these synth sounds, so you can pop them into your sampler and play at your leisure. Here's some of the pad one-shots. So different kinds of chords in there. We have a nice variety of major and minor chords, and of course, included the single C versions of all of those pads. Here in the plucks, lots of different kinds. So of course we have the traditional plucks, but then we also have some reverses here. These are great for transitions, leading into a chorus or just a new section of your song. And just they sound really ethereal too. So I just thought that sounded really cool and of course fits the aesthetic of the pack. Air, ethereal, all those kinds of things. So great, great sounds. And finally, we have the synth one-shots. So a lot of nice harmonic and melodic content in here, as well as the single C note versions of those sounds. again, so you can play at your own will. Cool, so that wraps up the synths. Now let's take a look at the winds. The winds are synth emulated wind sounds, so woodwinds, flutes, those kinds of instruments. Great variety of harmonic and melodic wind lines. Great for adding into your tune to add a little bit more organic character. Here we have the wind one-shots. And a nice dynamic variety of sounds here, chords, single notes, the single Cs, of course, just for maximal creativity. Cool, so that wraps up all of the samples. Let's take a look at what's in the bonus folder. So here in the bonus folder, we have some sampler instruments, Serum presets, and some wavetables. Let's take a look at the sampler instruments. Here we have some battery 4 instruments. These are all the drum one-shots. We have loads of Kontakt instruments, 2-1. Now what's cool about the Kontakt instruments is every single sample in this pack, with the exception of a couple of the drum percussive one-shots, have been made into individual instruments. So not only have I included the full groups where you can play all the bass one-shots in one Kontakt instance, but if there's one bass one-shot in particular that you really liked, it's already been loaded up into Kontakt as well as Logic Sampler as an individual instrument, so you can play it across the entire keyboard, play melodies, play whatever you want with it. So one last thing that I want to show off that's kind of cool about these sampler instruments is in Kontakt. So we're going to load up an instance of Kontakt here. And with the Kontakt instrument loaded up, not only do we have this individual atmosphere one-shot playable, we also have a custom UI. And this is the cover art for the sample pack loaded in to the UI of the sampler, just to give it a little bit of extra character and spice. Cool, so let's take a look at these wavetables and presets now. So we have 25 different wavetables of different kinds of harmonic makeups. So great for high energy sounds as well as some smaller, softer sounds like bells and keys and things like that. Great for basses. Again, just wanted to include as much variety as possible. Now let's take a look at the presets. Here's a few basses. Here's a couple of the flute or wind presets. Here's a couple of the keys. Here's some fallers. Here's some risers. Now let's take a look at the synths. Let's start with the leads. Here's some pads. Here's a couple of plucks. And finally, we have some synths. Cool, so that wraps up all of the Serum presets. Again, loads of variety for you guys to play with. Lots of gorgeous sounds, lots of mean basses, some nice stripped back kinds of basses, different kinds of effects, just loads of different kinds of sounds for you guys to play with. And really for whatever writing, production, sound design style you have, there's something for you in those presets. I had lots of fun making those sounds, and honestly, I think they're probably my favorite presets that I've made out of the Element series so far. So I really love those sounds and hope you guys do as well. All right, so now let's head on over into the demo track. Let's just scan through it a little bit. I'll show you a couple of the different loops that I made in the entire project and show you how some of the samples and presets were used for those instances in the demo track. Let's start off by taking a loop at this C# minor loop. Cool, so this is one of my favorite loops in the demo track. It's tropical sounding, it's melodic, it sounds organic, it's very nice and dynamic. That's what I like the most about it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the drums here. All right, so we have the full drum loop right here that is carrying the main drum rhythm with an added perk. And that's just giving it a bit more of an organic sounding on the snare. And then we have that percussion loop now adding a little bit more to the snare as well as the rhythm itself. And then another organic tonal layer on the snare. Now we're gonna go over to the tops here, and this is where things really do come out. So we have this tops loop here, just adding a little bit more impact on the downbeats, as well as the snares. And then we have this hi-hat loop here that's adding more to that 8th note rhythm, and there's a little bit of a 16th note backing going on there, which is adding that 16th note groove. It's very, very subtle, but it's adding a nice amount to the entirety of the drums. Here we have the synth chords. A pad loop and the key loop and a synth wind loop. These are all playing the same chords and they're all just playing together, adding a nice harmonic wall of sound. And then finally we have the bass, which is of course just playing the root notes of the chords, but also following the rhythm. And that mid-high sound, that resonance in the bass is adding a little bit to the tropical and percussive quality of this loop. And then of course, all together, Super groovy. I love that one a lot. All right, so now let's go over to something that's a little bit different. Let's go over to this B minor one right here. So first of all, we have a lot going on here. We have loads of drums, and then we have a lot of different synths as well. So let's go ahead and open all this up and take a look at what's going on. We'll look at our drums. So we have some top loops, we have actually a full drum loop that's just been EQ'd for the tops, we have a short effects loop, more hat loops, and then over in the last 8 bars of this 16 bar loop, we have 2 shakers that come in and add extra 16th note rhythm to the overall groove. This is what all those tops sound like. Now let's go to the full kit. So a very simple full kit loop we have here, and then we have a bunch of snare layers that are adding extra punch as well as extra tonal interest to the snare. So let's go ahead and solo the loop by itself. Pretty cool, but if we add this layer, and then this one, and then this one, and then finally this one, we have a huge snare. Next, we have the synth lead. So not a whole lot going on here. We have the loop just plopped in with a little bit of processing, and then we have a reverb layer. That's about it. Now for the synth effects, a really gorgeous chord hit, some keys. We have this pad loop here that's just been shortened up to 1 chord. And then for the last 8 bars, we have a little bit more going on. And then for the last 8 bars, we have this sound right here playing the root note that is just holding it down as an anchor for the rest of the loop. Finally, we have the bass here. Very simple stuff. It's the same loop, just 2 layers, 1 mid layer, 1 high layer, just to get a little bit more processing out of it. Other than that, very, very simple loop when you take a look under the hood, but nonetheless sounds awesome all together. Cool, so now let's wrap things up by taking a look at this F minor liquid drum and bass loop. Cool, so since this is a softer sounding tune, not a whole lot going on, we have the full kit. And of course, that's carrying the main drum rhythm in the entire tune. Which is then supported by the percussion here. We have a percussion loop and a shaker loop. The shaker comes in at the last 8 bars. And then finally, we have these hats right here. Just adding a little bit of top end interest to the entire drums. And these are the drums all together. Now let's go over to the keys here. This is where things are very interesting. So a lot of nice little transitional moments, very soft, lush sounds. And we have a nice variety of different kinds of sounds in here too. We have a key loop that's just been shortened up to a one shot. We have a synth one shot. We have a reverse pluck one shot, another key chord one shot, and another key chord one shot. So a lot of keys and then some synths and some plucks as well to bolster those keys. Very simple bass pad. This is one of the Serum presets with a low pass filter on it. And then finally, we have the chorus Atmos. And this is made up of 2 atmosphere samples that have been layered together. This is the first one. Here's the second. Together. They blend beautifully. Cool, so I think it's a great place to stop. Lots of different sounds in this pack. Huge, huge collection. So many sounds, so many gorgeous sounds, so many different kinds of sounds for all different kinds of production. It was a lot of fun making this pack. I hope you guys enjoyed. If there's anything that you'd like me to elaborate on a little bit more, feel free to reach out to me at Imaginate across all socials, or feel free to email me at imaginate@gmail.com and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. That's it for now. Thanks so much for hanging out. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.